These are new regional conferences in College Football 26 Dynasty. So before we get into the new conferences, I wanted to show you this. This is the new thing that we're going to be using going forward to make sure we are getting the correct best team and best conference in the video. On the left side, or your left side there, you're going to see the team scorebook there. So for a championship, you get 15 points. For a playoff win, you get 5 points. For a playoff appearance, you get 5 points. If you get a bye in the first round, that's actually 7 points. So you basically get 2 extra points as opposed to just winning into the quarterfinal. A Heisman Trophy will give you 3 points, and a conference championship will give you 2 points. The idea here is that we really want to leave it on the championships to choose who's actually winning the video, but we still want to make sure that we're counting the other things and not just kind of going based on feel, because and the same thing is for the best conference in the video. We've changed a few things here. Everything is the same for the top 4, but if you have a runner-up from your conference, that gives you 4 points. We're not going to count Heisman's towards conference, best conference in the video. And then if you have 4+ teams in a given season in the playoffs, you will get an additional 2 points, and we'll tally those up through the video, and I'll make the decisions on the bet, or we'll present the best team in the video at the end. We all are also going to be moving into having a Hall of Fame for best teams, because we've had some videos where teams have won 2 or 3. I don't think we've had anybody win 3 championships yet. We've had teams win back-to-back championships. We've had teams win 2 in 3 years, things like that. So we want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on those best teams, and we'll have Hall of Fames. We'll put a short together for the Hall of Fame team, and we're going to include some new things. I'm working on doing some kind of membership for this channel for those of you that want to get more involved in this channel, and we're working on some way to get you involved in kind of not betting, but ideas of how to put a prediction in for who's going to be the best team in a month, or what is going to, for a particular video, how you can make some team, you can say, well, for this setup, this team's going to be better, or that team's going to be better. So we're working on all these things, but this is our scorebook, which is the first part of that, which we're going to be working off of. So we have a more scientific view of best team and best conference in the video. So we're going to start using that today with this new regional conference setup that we've got here. So basically, we just wanted to kind of do regional conferences, but cut them up slightly differently than we usually would. There's kind of hard to do with the Northeast, but essentially we went Virginia up, leaving out Pennsylvania. We got Army, Boston College, Delaware, JMU, Liberty, Maryland, Navy, ODU, Rutgers, Syracuse, Temple, UConn, UMass, Virginia, and Virginia Tech. This is going to be the weakest conference in the video for sure, but maybe there's teams like Maryland, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, some of these higher end teams, or maybe even JMU, could make a run through this conference and find their way into the playoff. The ACC is just North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. So App State, Coastal Carolina, Charlotte, Clemson, Duke, East Carolina, Georgia Southern, Georgia, Georgia State, Georgia Tech, Kennesaw State, NC State, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Wake. The Big Ten is Michigan, Indiana, Iowa, and Illinois, and Wisconsin, and Minnesota as well. So we've got Ball State, Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Iowa State, Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota, Northern Illinois, Northwestern, Notre Dame, Purdue, Western Michigan, and Wisconsin. This should be one of the stronger conferences in the video. The Big 12, this is more of a Big 8. It's a smaller conference, but we had to kind of cut things up because I originally made it for 9 conferences for getting old, just not really paying attention. So we had to kind of change things around a little bit. So actually, with that being said, we're going to move Iowa down. We're going to move Iowa down here into the Big 8. So then it's Arkansas, Arkansas State, Iowa, Iowa State, Kansas, Kansas State, Missouri, Missouri State, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Tulsa. Conference USA is kind of an Appalachian style one, so this is the one that we had to kind of throw together on the fly. We originally had Kentucky and Tennessee in the Big 8, which I thought would be interesting, but instead we've got this smaller conference in the Appalachian area. Kentucky, Louisville, Marshall, Memphis, Middle Tennessee, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Western Kentucky, and West Virginia. So West Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee all in one conference. This is just Ohio and Pennsylvania, aside from Temple, because Temple is more of the Northeast. We went Western Pennsylvania. So Akron, Bowling Green, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Kent State, Miami, Ohio, Ohio State, Penn State, Pittsburgh, and Toledo. I guess Buffalo is included here as well, Western New York. Again, Western Pennsylvania and Western New York, much different than the other sides of the state. This is the Mountain West Conference. We've got basically the Northwest as well as the Mountain region. So Air Force, BYU, Boise State, Cal, Colorado, Colorado State, Fresno State, Nevada, Oregon, Oregon State, San Jose State, Stanford, Utah, Utah State, Washington, Washington State, and Wyoming. The Pac-12 is a Southwest division, and it's actually extending across the entire Southwest all the way to LA, all the way actually to Hawaii, but Hawaii's got to go somewhere. They're not in any other region, but Arizona, Arizona State, Baylor, Hawaii, New Mexico, New Mexico State, North Texas, SMU, San Diego State, TCU, Texas, Texas State, Texas Tech, UCLA, UNLV, USC, UTEP, and UTSA. We had to separate East Texas out because it's got to be too big of a conference. The SEC is Alabama and Florida, Alabama, Auburn, FIU, Florida Atlantic, Florida, Florida State, Jacksonville State, Miami, South Alabama, Troy, UAB, UCF, and USF. And finally, the Sun Belt is East Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Houston, LSU, Louisiana, Louisiana Tech, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Rice, Sam Houston, Southern Miss, A&M, Tulane, and UL Monroe. So we're going to roll with Rutgers because don't they like pay out the schools for the amount of times that you play with a certain school? Maybe that's just online, but either way, Rutgers could use the money, so we're going to try to help them as much as we can. We're going to do our 3 years, best team, best conference, using our new scorebook, seeing how that actually goes into effect here. But first, make sure that you like and subscribe. We're over 500 subscribers now, so we're going to start advancing this channel a little bit more. Our next goal is to get to 1,000 to get us fully monetized on this channel. We're on our way there. Make sure that you are along for the ride, like and subscribe, and let's go to the first CFP poll. Pretty good start from Rutgers. We're 6-2. Maybe we can get out of this $500 million hole with a national championship at $20 million from the CFP. But either way, this is what our top 25 looks like. We have some interesting things up here. We got 6 undefeated schools. Arizona State being the undefeated school out of that Texas, Southern California conference that we have is very interesting. Now, you could catch an easy schedule because it's a bigger one, and that seems like kind of what they've done. I mean, they've got a big win against Baylor, a win against TCU, a big win at USC. It was a nationally televised game. They've won against Texas Tech. I mean, they've played not the easiest schedule, not the hardest schedule either. They've missed Texas. They've missed, really, they just missed Texas, but USC, Texas Tech will be the other good schools in there. They have a road game at Iowa State, who's not doing so great, and then Colorado, and then the Territorial Cup there at the end of the season, which could be a ranked game depending on how Arizona does for the rest of their conference slate. So we could see Arizona State making it out of that Pac-12 that we've put together, which is pretty good. Kansas State also, which makes a little bit more sense, is the undefeated team, but they did get a big win over Oklahoma. We've got Arkansas, who's a top 11 team in this conference as well. Missouri's up there as well. So this conference actually has quite a few heavy hitters out of it, and probably 2 of the most surprising teams with Kansas State and Arkansas both undefeated in the top 12. We've also got Georgia Tech up here, and that, again, is interesting because the Georgia Conference, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina Conference is not easy. They did lose pretty bad to Clemson. It's interesting that they are so highly ranked with the teams that they've beaten, but they avoid Georgia for whatever reason in that conference, and they've got some pretty easy games the rest of the season, so we could very well see Georgia Tech in the college football playoff, or at least in their conference championship game at the end of the season there. Louisville's the one that's kind of running the Conference USA Appalachian Conference, right? We'll look at some of the conference standings. Michigan State up there as well. So this, again, as these things tend to do, they help the power conference teams, traditional power conference teams, more than the non-power teams or the G6 teams, but it still has brought up a lot of teams that we wouldn't usually see up here. Even Kentucky's up here as well. So there's a lot of teams that we wouldn't usually see up there, kind of churning up some of the lower end conference teams, which is interesting to see with how we've been going nowadays. So we're right outside of the top of the American. Big game at Illinois coming up here this next week. If we get that win, probably a top 25 team, and have a really good chance at winning the American. So maybe that doesn't get us in the playoff, but it could be a very good season. I wanted to look at, because Georgia is 7-0. Georgia and Georgia Tech aren't going to play each other. Will they play Clemson is the question. They won't. Okay, so it'll be interesting to see who actually gets into the ACC championship game. I wanted to look at, what do we put in? Conference USA. So Vanderbilt and Tennessee are in the front. Louisville has lost a conference game at Vanderbilt. They do play Clemson and Tennessee and Kentucky. This is a tough final stretch of the season. Could see Louisville in the college football playoff as well. But let's go to the conference championship games and see what's going on. All right, so we did get into the American championship game, not in the top 25, but getting to the football championship game in the first season against Virginia Tech is a good first step here for Rutgers. Let's see what the rest of the conference champions or championship games look like here. So Duke and Georgia. Duke, not that surprisingly, makes it in there. Georgia Tech was kind of one of the favorites to get in there, but Duke jumps over Clemson and Georgia Tech. They'll face Georgia in that first one. We get the border war in the Big 8 championship game. It's the Big 12, but modeled after the Big 8. So that's a pretty big game right there. Indiana, Michigan, of course. Tennessee, Vanderbilt. I don't know what the name of their rivalry is called, but Tennessee-Vanderbilt in-state rivalry is a very good game in that Appalachian Conference. Both of them 9-3. Winner probably gets in here, but it's going to be tight because there are a lot of conference champion automatic qualifiers that will be in. Pitt, Ohio State. Ohio State has been struggling a lot in this game, really for the last couple roster updates. They have not been one of the top teams in college football in the new updates. I want to play around with some things, and Ohio State might end up being the recipient of some boost for us later on in one of these videos. Classic Pac-12 championship, this time in the Mountain West. Oregon is the undefeated 12-0. I think they might be the only undefeated team we've seen so far. Arizona State did end up losing a non-conference game, probably that Iowa State game, but they will face off against Texas, who was one of the top teams they didn't play in the Pac-12 this season, to get maybe a first-round bye. Miami and Florida. Miami is pretty obviously going to be the winner of that Florida-Alabama conference in the first season. Ole Miss and A&M in the Sun Belt Championship. So we're missing a few things, but we're going to get Missouri and Kansas in there in the first season. This is a pretty good setup that we've got here. So we didn't see Kentucky. They're going to get in there. We're going to get Missouri, Kansas, and Kentucky probably all in the college football playoff. And we might even get Kansas State, depending on... Well, Kansas State is the 12, depending on what this ends up looking like. So 1, 2, 3, 4, well, it doesn't, this might not even get somebody automatic qualifier. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to 7 are in their own conference championship games. They're not 1 through 7 are all in conference championship games and not facing each other. So that means that if everybody ahead wins, there's not going to be any outside automatic qualifier. So the MAC is almost certainly out. The Conference USA is the one conference that's like they're probably not going to be able to get in. Duke absolutely has to win, and they might not even get an automatic qualifier. They might not jump in after the win. Kansas State is really rooting for Duke to lose. So it'll really be between Kansas State and Duke at the end there, as long as everybody takes care of business ahead of them. Trinidad Chambliss ends up winning the Heisman. We haven't seen that in a couple videos. It's not John Mateer in the first season, so that is very good. 4,200 yards, 40 touchdowns. I believe that Rutgers ended up winning the American Championship game. Yes, we did. Got into the top 25. We'll face off against North Texas in the Fenway Bowl. Very, very good first season for Rutgers and for Greg Schiano, who we are. What does our bracket end up looking like here? Okay, so Kansas State does not end up getting in. Interesting. Okay, well, we still got a pretty good setup here. So Indiana got the win in the Big Ten championship game. Oregon got the win in the Mountain West. Missouri got the win in the Big 12. Ole Miss got the win in the SEC. And then Miami, or I think that's technically the Sun Belt, and then Miami got the win in the SEC. So we got Georgia and Michigan in the first round. That means that Kansas State did not get in, but we got a couple interesting teams in. Winner of that game will take on Ole Miss in the Cotton Bowl. Kentucky hosting Texas. So Texas won the Pac-12 championship game over Arizona State. They will still be on the road. They will face off against Kentucky there, and then the winner goes to Indiana for the Rose Bowl. Miami will host Duke, old school ACC matchup. The winner goes on to face Missouri in the, Sugar Bowl. And then Arizona State will host Kansas. The winner goes on to face off against Oregon in the Orange Bowl. So interesting way that shakes out. Kentucky and Kansas in the first season are very, very good gets for our first college football playoff poll. What do we have here? So 2 Pac-12 teams, Arizona State and Texas. We've got 2 Big 12 teams with Kansas and Missouri. We've got Kentucky represents our Appalachian Conference, which is Conference USA. Michigan is from our Big 10. Georgia is ACC along with Duke. Miami is the SEC. Ole Miss is Sun Belt, and Oregon is the Mountain West. Indiana is also from the Big 10. So 2 from the Big 10 and the Big 12, 2 from the Pac-12, and then everybody else is just 1. 2 from the ACC as well with Duke and Georgia. So a couple of conferences have multiple teams in this year, but no 14 bonus. Couldn't get the win in the Wasabi Fenway Bowl, but we did get a couple upsets. Maybe if there weren't technical upsets, big wins here in the first round. So Georgia gets a big win over Michigan. We've got Ole Miss and Georgia in the Cotton Bowl. Kentucky does actually pull it off. They beat Texas in the 8-9 matchup. So it's Indiana, Kentucky in the Rose Bowl. Could Kentucky make a run here? Kansas got the win over Arizona State. Arizona State, again, has been one of the best teams in the new roster update. Kansas gets the win over them on the road. They'll face off against Oregon in the Orange Bowl. And then Miami got the win over Duke. Well, not super surprising, but we'll have Missouri and Miami in the second round there. These are great matchups. Aside from Georgia and Ole Miss, each one of these matchups has somewhat of a surprising team in there. And Ole Miss has the Heisman Trophy winner 13-0. So it's not like they're something to be sneezed at. They're 13-0 and they're the number 4 team in the country. How does that work out? That's how it works out. But this is a very interesting second round in our first CFP. Unfortunately, our stories kind of go away. This is the semifinal that we had this year with teams mixed up a little bit. This is the true semifinal that we had in real life this year. Oregon crushes Kansas 65-22. They move on. They'll face off against Miami, who really takes care of business against Missouri as well, 38-14. So it's Oregon and Miami in the Fiesta Bowl in the semifinal here. And then Indiana gets a big win over Kentucky, and Ole Miss sneaks past Georgia by a touchdown, but they get into the semifinal. So it's Indiana, Ole Miss, Oregon, Miami. These are the only matchups that didn't actually face off of the real semifinal this year. So we're going to figure out really who's got what. We could get an Indiana-Miami national championship again. Miami's the only team that gets an upset win there. And we have 4 different conferences here in this semifinal. We've got the Mountain West versus the SEC in the bottom, and we've got the Sun Belt versus the Big 10 up top. So 4 different conferences in our first semifinal. And we get the anti-national championship from this year. Ole Miss and Oregon, both 15-0, make it into the national championship. Ole Miss by 3, Oregon by 10. They'll face off in Miami, going for a 16-0 perfect season. Should we put a perfect season bonus into our accounting there in our score sheet, so we give them an extra point for a perfect season? We won't do it with this video, but comment below and let me know if we should put a perfect season bonus into the score, but because it is pretty impressive to get the perfect season in 12-team college football playoff. You could even technically you could get a 17-0 season. That would be hard to do, but we could get a 16-0 season here. Maybe we'll make a video where we're chasing a 17-0 season for a particular team. But 2 versus 4 in the national championship. Let me take a second here to kind of tally things up before we sim into this national championship game. And Ole Miss absolutely crushes Oregon. They get the perfect first season. 16-0, Heisman Trophy, and the bye, and a national championship to start off our video. What a massive start for Ole Miss, 62-25. It was a 17-10 game at halftime. Maybe Oregon even tied it up in the third quarter. We're going to say that Oregon ties it up in the third quarter, 17-17. And then what is this? A 35-8 run to close out the game for Ole Miss. They get the final win, 62-21. Trinidad Chambliss throws for almost 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. How much does he run for? He runs for another touchdown, 46 yards on the ground. Absolute domination from Ole Miss in the national championship game. They get the first championship of the video. They take the lead in the best team in the video. That's like a 40-point first season almost, 30-point at least, first season almost, and then they will give the Sun Belt the lead to start off in the best conference race. Yeah, just doing the math, that's a 42-point first season for Ole Miss. They check all the boxes in the first season. Going to be very hard to catch them. Oregon had a great season as well. They miss out on the 15 points from the championship, so they're really going to need to make that up as we go. But a great start for Ole Miss. Another great start by Rutgers. We're 6-2, but I wanted to nail down with a point situation that we're at currently. Ole Miss is currently in the lead with 47 points after the perfect season in our first season. Now, again, if you want to, let me know if we should add in the undefeated bonus, 16-0 bonus, because that will put them at 48. But for right now, they're at 47. Oregon, who's in second place, is at 24. There's a lot of points left on the board if you don't get that national championship. It accounts for 20 points, really, that no one else is going to get. The 15 for the championship and the 1 for the playoff win. So championships are still the most important thing. Then our next finalist is Indiana. They are at 19, and Miami is in fourth place at 17. Those are our 4 top teams after the first season, but you see how much that perfect season can really give you in Ole Miss's case, and they might need it because we don't see them here in our top 12. How far down does Ole Miss? We have to go to see Ole Miss. Ole Miss is 21 currently, so that big lead they have might help them out. They're 7-1, so there's still a long ways to go, but that is definitely a big help for them in the first season. We do see Indiana back up here. They're in third place currently. We do see Oregon back up here. Don't see Miami. Miami is also number 18, so there's a lot of work for our other semifinalists. We see Kentucky back up in the top 6 in the second season. That is a big, big thing for Kentucky. I mean, that's crazy. 2 straight seasons we might get Kentucky in there. Missouri, who was a bye team last year, probably is in our third place or 5th place maybe. Well, they didn't get a win, so Missouri is gonna need to get another bye this year to really help them out. Duke we see back up there. Nobody really that new. We saw Arkansas up as high as like 11 last season. They ended up losing their way out. They are in the top 25, but probably just holding on to that spot there. Washington we see up there that we didn't see last year. Let's go take a look at the conference standings real quick. Boston College. So we got a lot more good teams in the American this season. 6-2 might not get us into that conference championship game, especially with both those losses in conference. The Big 12 is looking pretty good this year. Conference USA has been an interesting one because Kentucky made it in after not making the conference championship last season. Do we have a Kentucky? So they lost a game versus Missouri earlier on in the season. That's a big game. Kentucky, Missouri, of course, that's a nationally televised game. But there is a Tennessee-Kentucky game coming up here in 2 weeks, assuming that Kentucky can take care of business against Vandy. That is a big game. And then we have the, I don't know what that, Bluegrass Cup between Louisville and Kentucky at the end of the season. So Kentucky has a long ways to go, but they did get a playoff win last year, so it wouldn't be too surprising. Our Pac-12, Arizona State was one of our teams that made it in last year. They have really fallen off in the second season, so we'll see if we get anybody from the Pac-12. UCLA is 9-0 currently, but I'm sure they have some tough games here at the end of the season. Actually not. They, for whatever reason, miss USC this year. Again, stupidity of changing the conferences around with this game, but they have some pretty easy games besides that TCU one at the end. We could see UCLA in the playoffs this season. Let's see what the conference champions look like. We get a rematch of Kentucky-Louisville in the Conference USA Championship. That's an amazing, this is what we're looking for, folks. These are why you switch conferences around. You get Kentucky and Louisville in the Conference USA Championship game. UCLA is undefeated. They do get their game against USC in the Pac-12 Championship game. Missouri looks like they're trying to get back into a bye. Washington is 11-1. Oregon's not in their conference championship game here, so it'll be interesting to see if Oregon made it back in. We're also looking at Ole Miss making it back in. We have a lot of unranked, so don't get any ranked teams in the MAC championship game. No ranked teams in the American championship game, just like last year. So we're going to have some teams missing out. Georgia and Duke face off again this year, and we get an Indiana State championship in our Big Ten. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and should be 5. Get the automatic qualifier. So USC, BYU, Oklahoma, they need big wins to get in. Oklahoma's probably in, but they still would probably need to win. So nobody's going to be jumping from the outside is what we see again. What's the top 25 look like? So Oregon's at 12. They might just stay safe at 12 and find their way in. What was the loss that got them down there? Late season loss to Washington on the road. Kind of got clobbered by Washington and don't really have a lot of other great... They have what? 2 wins above teams that are 500 and above, and they're both non-conference wins. Wow, this conference is pretty weak besides the top 3. So Oregon may or may not make their way in. They need it because they cannot miss it with how big of a lead Ole Miss has. Ole Miss is not even a top 25 team, though. So again, everybody's going to have to try to race to catch up against Ole Miss, but they have a huge lead. They're more than double or almost doubling up Oregon, who was the second best team in the first round. So we'll see how good people can get to match that first season from Ole Miss. You can't escape it, folks. John Mateer is going to win a Heisman. It used to be the first Heisman every single time. Now it seems like he's winning the second Heisman more and more often. 3,500 yards, 40 touchdowns, rinse and repeat. Oklahoma gets another Heisman trophy. Rutgers into a second straight bowl game. We went 8-4 this season, taking on SMU in the Go Bowling Military Bowl. Is it Go Bowling for bowl games? It makes more sense that would be like a bowling organization, right? I don't know. Again, why do these? How much advertising does it give Go Bowling? What's our bracket look like here? Okay, so Missouri and Indiana Indiana is the only semifinalist from last season that makes it in this season. Oregon did end up falling its way out. LSU is 13-0 and undefeated, and is the number 12 team. This could be the team that gets us to 17-0 if they can win out from that 12 seed. So Washington, who lost in the Pac-12 championship game, which is why Oregon is out because BYU jumped up, they will take on LSU in an all-purple bowl. Winner takes on Missouri, who's a bye team for the second straight season. BYU and Alabama will face off. Winner takes on Georgia in next season. Duke is back in the 6-11 matchup. This time it's flipped around. Duke is the 6. Oklahoma is the 11. The winner will face off against Indiana, who has the best chance to catch up to Ole Miss this season. Notre Dame's in for the first time this year. They will host Kentucky. Winner takes on Louisville. Could be the third time this season that Kentucky and Louisville face off. Conference USA has 2 teams in. Mountain West has 2 teams in. The Big 12 has 2 teams in with Oklahoma and Missouri. The ACC has 2 teams in with Duke and Georgia. The Big 10 has 2 teams in with Notre Dame and Indiana. The SEC has 1 team in with Alabama, and the Sun Belt has 1 team in with LSU. The Sun Belt is the team, or is the conference with the national championship out of Ole Miss last season. They also got a perfect season at Ole Miss last season. Could LSU pull that off again this year? LSU's perfect season is stopped in its tracks in Washington. They lose in Seattle 41-38. Washington will move on to play Missouri, who's looking to get their first win in the playoff so far. BYU gets the win over Alabama. They host them and they get the win. They will take on Georgia in the Orange Bowl after that win. Duke last year was a loser in the 11th seed. This year, they're the winner in the 6th seed. They beat Oklahoma, who's in for their first time. We get Duke and Indiana in the second round in the Fiesta Bowl. Notre Dame gets past Kentucky, so we don't get our third matchup between Kentucky and Louisville in the Peach Bowl, but Louisville does have a chance to go on a pretty good run here if they can get the win. Indiana, again, is where the pressure point is for this season. They're the one that can get the closest to Ole Miss. No, Ole Miss is not getting any points this season. They have 0 points from this season. They didn't win a conference championship, didn't get into the playoff, nothing. So there is room for teams like Indiana, Missouri to a lesser extent. Georgia got a win last season. They got like 10 points to catch up and get to where Ole Miss is in this season. Last year, we were essentially chalk one way. This year, it's all upsets aside from one. Georgia gets a big win, 48-14 over BYU. They're well on their way to a perfect season. 2 more wins gets them pretty close to what Ole Miss did in the first season. They will face off against Washington, who has another high-scoring game. They get past Missouri, who loses for their second straight time in the quarterfinal after getting another bye this year. Washington wins by 2 touchdowns. They will take on Georgia in the Rose Bowl in the semifinal. Duke stops Indiana's pursuit of Ole Miss, at least for this season. They win by 17 and will take on Notre Dame, who beats their second straight team from Kentucky, this time by 3, so a total of 8 points so far that they've got the win by Duke and Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl. So Georgia very well could catch them up in one season, and they would probably take the lead because what they're missing from the last season is the Heisman, but that's only 3 points, and they did get into the playoff last year, which is more points than the Heisman. So we'll add that up depending on what it looks like in the national championship. But they don't get into the national championship. Washington gets the stop, 33-31. We get Washington, Notre Dame. I don't think we've seen this national championship game yet. This is a good one in the second season. Washington gets the win by 2. Notre Dame gets the win by 7. Their third straight single-digit win on their way to the national championship game. 2 teams that didn't get a first-round bye are in 5 versus 7 in Vegas for the national championship. 2 14-2 teams. Notre Dame is having the better season so far because they have that conference championship, but either way, this national championship is going to change the way that the scoreboard looks for the final season. Let me tally some things up and kind of put what's at stake for these 2 teams before we sim. All right, so going into the national championship game, here is our updated scoreboard. So Ole Miss still in the lead with 47 points. Indiana, before the national championship game, has moved into second place with 31 points. Georgia has moved into third place with 29 points. Then Duke and Oregon are tied at 24, but our 2 national championship game participants, Notre Dame and Washington, both have 20 points on the line here, and currently Notre Dame's at 22 with a just slight 2-point lead over Washington, who has 20 for their runs that they've had so far. So whoever wins this game in the national championship game will automatically move into second place, either 5 or 7 points behind Ole Miss going into our final season here. So there's a lot on the line in this national championship. And in overtime, Notre Dame gets the win over Washington by 3. They move into second place in the best team race. Notre Dame gets a field goal in overtime and stops Washington. So they get the win 34-31. That puts Notre Dame into second place with 42 points on this season. That is also the second straight runner-up for the Pac-12 conference. Oregon last year, Washington this year. So they're not in the best conference race quite yet, but they're up there if they can get another team up into the national championship next season. I'll put that all together at the end, but for right now, Notre Dame moves into second place, right behind Ole Miss going into the final season, with Indiana and Georgia right behind, all in striking distance, along with Oregon and Duke and Washington, all kind of within striking distance going into the final season. Rutgers starts 6-2 again, so we might have another great season. Now we really see there's a lot of our contenders for best team in the video at the top here. We got Georgia, Washington, Oregon, Indiana, even Notre Dame is in the top 12 again. Duke is a contender up there as well. We have all these teams on our list. Louisville has made the playoff. They have a bye. Maybe they could have an incredible season this year and they could push up, because Ole Miss, who is in the lead in the video, is not in our, they're in the top, they're number 25 in the country. They've already got 2 losses. Can they find their way back into this? Or are we looking at some of the best teams already this season as the teams that are going to fight for it? Georgia's got a big matchup against Florida coming up. Washington's on the road at BYU. Oregon's already 9-0. Do they have a matchup against Washington at the end of the season here? Yeah, we've got this Washington-Oregon matchup in Autzen at the end of the season. This is going to be massive, massive, massive for the best team in the video race. We'll see who ends up winning that game. That could very well go a long way into seeing who's going to get the first round bye, who's going to get the conference championship. And those 2 things are, that could be up to 10 points on the line there, or 9 points on the line there. And we also want to look at our Heisman Trophy race. We don't really look at the Heisman Trophy race, but it could very well come down to that at the end. Dante Moore is in the lead currently, but this can all change on a dime. We've got Dante Moore and Landon Roldan. Landon Roldan, for some reason, has started to win a lot of Heisman Trophy winning, or Heisman Trophy in the videos we've been seeing recently. So could Landon Roldan end up moving up in there, or could, Tennessee could technically have a 47-point season here. Like, it's going to be close. If Notre Dame gets in the playoff, they will have a pretty good chance. If they get a bye, they'll have a pretty good chance at winning it. But somebody still, with the way that it's currently laid out, Ole Miss has 47 points on one season and doesn't look like they're going to score any more points. So somebody could come and tie them up in one season. Even though they had the perfect season, somebody could come in and tie them up. So that's maybe why we want to consider putting in that 16-0 bonus, or at least undefeated season bonus, just so we can kind of differentiate the absolute best seasons there. But as of right now, we're seeing that it's kind of consistency versus overall winning. Just one championship gets you 40 points. So if you can put that together with one or two more playoffs, that gets you best team in the video. But let's go to the conference championship games and see what it actually looks like. 7-5 for our worst season yet, but Rutgers makes it to 3 straight bowl games. I would say that's successful. Come on, Rutgers, you need to make up all that debt you're in right now. Tennessee is looking like they could get that perfect season put together here. They will face off against Louisville, who's into their second straight Conference USA championship game. Tennessee could be looking at a first round bye. Texas is trying to get back in after the first season. Oregon and Washington. So Oregon got the win. They get a rematch here. The winner of this game is going to have an inside track on best team in the video. We do see Ole Miss in a conference championship game, so they could score some points here, but it's an outside chance, a real outside chance that gets them into the college football playoff. So that's big. Notre Dame also looks like they have a real outside chance of getting into the college football playoff. Even the conference championship won't get them ahead of Ole Miss, so Notre Dame might be out. Indiana is very much in the race. Duke and Georgia are very much in the race. Oregon and Washington are very much in the race. Tennessee could be in the race. Oklahoma could be in the race if they can get a first-round bye here. So we've got a lot still to play for. What's the top 25 looking like that we're missing here? Because there's definitely some teams that are not in those championship games. Minnesota. That is not a team that we see in the top 20 or in the college football playoff very often. Nebraska was up there. Looks like maybe they lost to Minnesota at the end of the season. They didn't. I'm not sure what happened there. Minnesota's only losses to Indiana. So we'll see. With these conferences, you could definitely miss the best teams in the video. Miami, who was one of our better teams in the first season, doesn't look like they're going to be able to get back in. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see if some miracle comes together where either Ole Miss or Notre Dame get back into the top 25 or get back into the college football playoff. Otherwise, we've got 4 or 5 teams really vying for that spot at the end of the season. Let's see what that bracket looks like. Tennessee, they stay alive. They get the Heisman Trophy. Kenny Minchie, 4,400 yards, 40 touchdowns. He is looking like Tennessee's looking like they have a chance here. We're going to be against A&M in the Myrtle Beach Bowl, top 20 team. So we could end up with some fireworks. We haven't won a bowl game yet, so it could end up being one of our better seasons, even though we had a worse regular season. What's the bracket look like? If Tennessee's a top 4 seed, they're alive. They're the number 1 team in the country. They are in the race. They're in the race. The winner of Minnesota and Florida, Minnesota does find their way in, will be in the race with Tennessee to get the best team, or will be against Tennessee in their search for best team in the video. But look at this. I stumbled because Notre Dame ends up making it in. So that puts them in line with Ole Miss to start the playoff. They are also facing off against Indiana, a game that they just won to get the Big Ten championship game, and a game that has been the Big Ten championship game the last 2 seasons. So who's going to take that right there? That is a massive, massive game. They then move on to play Georgia. Georgia's another team in the race. Massive, massive game. Washington gets the Pac-12 championship game in revenge against Oregon in that first season. That is a big, big start for them because it could come down to Oregon and Washington at the end of the video. They will have to play one of the teams that has been in the college football playoff before, between Texas and Louisville. Oklahoma is technically still in the race here. They've made the college football playoff. They have a Heisman Trophy winner. They could kind of cobble together what Ole Miss did in one season by winning out here. They also might have to face off against Oregon in the second round, who's very much in the race. So it's all to play for here. Really, Minnesota, Florida, Nebraska, Texas are the only teams that are out of the race. No, really, it's just Minnesota, Florida, and Nebraska are the teams that are out of the race because they're not going to be able to get the bye in the Heisman. But Louisville, Texas, they've made the playoff 2 times. Still going to be hard because they don't get the bye. But what, a bye and a Heisman, does that automatically give you a bye and a Heisman is, no, they could technically still tie, or because a bye and a Heisman gives you 5 additional points. And if Texas has a conference championship, so that gives them 2 points. Texas, I think, and Louisville has a conference championship as well, and Louisville had a bye last season. So they're both also in the race. So it's really Minnesota, Florida, and Nebraska are the only teams that are not in the race for best team in the video. The national champion this year will be best team in the video. That's what it's going to be. Rutgers gets sent back to New Jersey without a win. 3 bowls, no wins, but still a great run by Rutgers. Oregon gets the win over Nebraska. They win 34-31. They will take on Oklahoma in the Sugar Bowl. Florida gets a big, big win over Minnesota. Florida is a 14-0 team right now. They're not going to be able to catch what Ole Miss did because of they didn't win they did win their conference championship, but they didn't win a Heisman and they didn't get a first-round bye, and it's only their first appearance. But they could really ruin things for everybody else. So technically Florida is still alive to ruin the race after that win in the first round. Notre Dame gets the big win over Indiana. Notre Dame has the inside track and is currently the best team in the video. They get an additional 10 points from where they were at coming into this season. So they are currently at 52 points and in the lead for best team in the video. Someone has to beat Notre Dame to make that happen. Georgia is right in that race as well. We'll see if they can get the win there. Texas gets the win over Louisville. Texas is not in as good of a spot as Louisville would have been, but they are also in a good spot here. Again, really, only Florida is the only team that would not get best team in the video with a win here, and they might end up doing it if we pay attention to what's been happening with this roster update. Florida in the third year has been dominant, and they're already 14-0. So let's see what ends up happening. Tennessee, folks. Tennessee, 13-1. They get the win over Florida, 42-38. They move on. They will face off against Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl after Oklahoma got the big win over Oregon, 45-17. The Pac-12 gets shut out, or the Mountain West, I should say, gets shut out at the end, actually by the Pac-12, with Texas getting the win 31-27 over Washington. So the Mountain West, who's had the 2 last runner-ups, gets knocked out of best conference race, gets knocked out of the best team race. Georgia gets the win over Notre Dame. So Notre Dame is still in the lead for best team in the video. Tennessee is actually out of best team in the video with Notre Dame's win prior to that because they can only get up to 47 points. And Notre Dame has 52. So Tennessee could ruin the race as well. I think Texas could ruin the race as well. Georgia and Oklahoma should both be in it because of how they've been able to perform up to this. So let's see what the national championship game is like, and we'll set the stage. So we get the Red River Shootout in the national championship game. Georgia comes up short. They came up short in the first season they came up short in the first season in the semifinal, when they were undefeated going into that, or was it last season? No, last season they came up short in the semifinal where they were undefeated going into that. They lose to Washington. Washington then moves on to lose the national championship. They lose in the second semifinal here, so they were definitely in the race the entire time, but no national championship knocks them out. Tennessee had a great season going in. They end up losing to Oklahoma, who I think is in the driver's seat here for best team in the video. Let me do some calculations and we'll set the stage. All right, so let's set the stage for what we have at stake here as far as the best team race in this game. So, a couple teams to clean up a little bit. Oregon and Washington both tie, or Oregon has 34 points, one of the last teams available in the race there, but they don't make it, end up making it through. Indiana and Washington tie at 36 points. Indiana making it 3 times. Washington having more success in the playoffs. Both teams end up with 36 points. A team that shows consistency matters. Georgia ends with 48 points after having no championship games, and they don't even make it, or no championship wins and don't even make it to the championship game. They end with 48 points, where Ole Miss, our team that had the perfect season at the beginning, had 47 points. So that shows you kind of how this scoreboard values greatness versus consistency, which is what I was trying to balance there, because Georgia definitely had a very good video. How much can you say they had a better video than Ole Miss? You can say a little bit because Ole Miss didn't do anything after that first season, but Georgia ultimately will not end up winning this video. Notre Dame, who is currently in first place, has 54 points, which is a very high mark for their national championship and then making it to the second round this next season. So that leaves us with 2 teams in the national championship. One of them will not have a chance to win this video. That's Texas. Texas, there's 20 points on the line. Currently, Texas has 29 points. So the best that they can do is second place with 49 points if they get this win over Oklahoma in this final week. Oklahoma, however, has 34 points. So again, the best that they can do with the 20 points available is tying Notre Dame at the end of this video. Notre Dame's conference championship game or conference championship win, as well as their win in the playoff, was enough to push them up to almost untouchable level there. So Notre Dame, at the very least, has won a share of the championship for best team in the video in this video. Oklahoma will be the only one that has a chance to tie it up with the win here. Now, for the best conference race, it is also sealed up. Now, there's no chance to even tie it up with the best conference race. So the top four looks like this. The ACC with 64 points. The Big 12, who does have a chance to improve their positioning, and currently in third with 66 points, with 15 points on the line, so actually don't have a chance at improving their positioning. The Mountain West with 82 points, of course, having those two runners up really helps. A lot of playoff wins between Oregon and Washington. But in first place, running away with it, the Big Ten with 94 points. The championship really is the difference there. If Washington gets the win last year, then the Big Ten takes advantage of that. Of course, that changes our best conference race as well, our best team race as well, but Big Ten runs away with it with really the state of Indiana being responsible for it. Indiana's playoff appearances and Notre Dame's national championship pushes them over the top into best conference. But still, Oklahoma has a chance to tie up best team in the video with a Red River shootout victory. But Texas takes the win, 34-14, sealing up the race for Notre Dame. Texas ends up with the second best team in the video with 49 points, just sneaking past Georgia at 48 points. But Notre Dame with 54 points is the best team in the video. They are part of the best conference in the video with the Big Ten at 94 points as a conference. And this is our first video with the CFB 26 scoreboard. So let me know how you like it, some changes that you would like. Main things are, do you want to add an undefeated bonus? And then I also am working on doing the most impressive team in the video race, which is going to be a little bit more interesting. I think Kentucky would win at this video, but it's going to be a little bit more subjective, so it's going to be hard to make that exactly scientific. I'm also going to work on some graphics for the ends of the videos where we can kind of show how the race is going. I'll work on all that this weekend, but so far, that's what we got. Our first official best team in the video, 54 points out of Notre Dame. We're going to put that onto the leaderboard, and we're going to compare against it going forward to see what a true Hall of Fame season looks like in College Football 26 Dynasty.